So after beating Orgodemir, you put back in time to before you beat him, and there's a post-game. There are yet another 2 tablets to be reassembled and put onto 2 pedestals hidden below the mysterious shrine. The first one is surrounded by 4 statues of the water spirit, a tablet with the symbol of the water spirit on top of it. Unlike most fragments until now, these have small side quests attached to them and aren't just found along the natural path through the game. So for the first time I want to talk about how to acquire them. I already covered Greycos V in the Wedlock video. And he does give you one of the fragments, and depending on when you visit him, even his ancestor's trident. He wants you to defeat the Demon King for him, simply because he doesn't want to be enlisted in a war against humanity. In that case, he would only be serving the Demon King as much as the people of Albalad were when they were forced to build the Sphinx. Again, he's one of the more human monsters. A different fragment is found underwater as well, fitting for the tablet with the water spirit's mark on it. This time it's ghosts you saw in the past, tormented in Coral Cave, the underwater dungeon connecting to the divine shrine. A maid dove into the ocean together with the prince that she was taking care of to try and escape the monsters. But even the ocean is filled with monsters. It's unclear whether they drowned or whether they were already dead when they dove in. If you visit them after beating Orgodemir for the first time, they will be free and thank you for it by giving you a fragment. They are reminiscent of the sunken spirits during your first visit of the sunken citadel. Outside of these 2 examples, the bottom of the sea is shown as out of reach for the Demon King, as a safe haven, for example with King Scuba's domain. Which makes sense because the water spirit is the only one out of the 4 actively watching over anything. The monsters don't disappear when you kill Orgodemir either. So the way I read the scene is that they drowned. Again, even if there is a goodwill from the water spirit, water can still harm you. At the end of the day it's just an element. But the forces of the Demon King drove them to drown themselves. This is why they're free now. The other 2 fragments aren't directly related to water, but still meaningful. Or at least only partially. After beating Orgodemir, you find another fragment in Estard's well during the ending scene. How it got there doesn't matter, it's clearly for gameplay reasons, so you don't do postgame before beating the final boss at least once, but the place represents something. At the very beginning of the game, you could already try to climb down the well and would be stopped by a worried bystander. You were treated as a child, infantilized despite your age, and weren't even allowed to do the very reasonable thing of climbing down a well. But somewhere along this long journey, you gained some autonomy. And now you can do what you were destined to do and crawl down this well to snatch yourself a fragment of a stone slab. And finally, I don't have much on this last fragment. It's your reward for gathering 85 mini medals. It is representative of how much you've seen, how many locations you've visited and how much you've explored. But that effect is even stronger in the next section, which these 4 fragments lead to. The cave to another world. You retread through a bunch of old areas, not just dungeons, but even towns now populated with monsters, very much like in the final dungeon in Dragon Quest VIII. And at the very end you find the Almighty, who was alive all along, but he decided that he wouldn't show himself anymore and just let humans deal with everything. In a sense, yes, humanity was God-forsaken all along. He figured you were strong enough. Humans were strong enough to fend for themselves, and as we found out so many times, humans were the answer to every problem posed throughout the game. And the Almighty thinks they will continue to be, and therefore talks about how humanity will have a bright future and self-determination. Truly free even from him. Something that would never have been achievable had he solved all their problems for them. In a sense, he allowed humanity to outgrow their infantilization, to achieve some level of autonomy, even if in the process he abandoned them. Basically a repeat of the message about not inhibiting curiosity I mentioned in the last video. It goes to show how far you've come. You started not being able to decide anything for yourself, and now you're self-sufficient. After his monologue, he does offer you to do some sparring with him to see just how far you've come, and when you do, one thing becomes clear. He wouldn't have stood a chance against Orgodemir. He has less total HP, he does less damage, and in fact only has one remotely scary move in his lightning attack. And if that wasn't enough, he wastes a ton of actions telling puns and twerking, which at the very best will trade one of his actions for yours. At best it's stalling, and it would of course be ineffective against Goldomir. These are abilities designed against humans if anything. And you might think, this isn't really all he amounts to. He says that he's strong in the back when he first lost against Goldomir, but he must be taking easy on you. Yet he tells you otherwise. So now there are two options. Either he's lying for no good reason, something that doesn't quite sound like an almighty would do it, or he's really this weak, while still being stronger than he used to be in the past. Both options lead to the same conclusion. He's not almighty. Who would have guessed? He's basically as much of a human as the monsters with a human mind are. Something that will soon be confirmed when he joins the Haven alongside all the other reformed monsters. But to get there I need to cover the second tablet first. For this one there are 8 fragments you need in total. 3 of those are gained after defeating the Almighty in less than 20 actions. Resetting the fight with the Sands of Time doesn't reset the Almighty's count, but it's a very loose requirement anyways. One is found in the Cathedral of Blight, specifically on the Water Spirit's path, which I already mentioned in the last video. Another can be exchanged for tokens in the Buckingham Casino. Again, the game wants you to engage with everything it has to offer. See and experience everything there is to see and experience. But at least it's a very low amount of tokens, so you can reasonably buy it directly with gold instead of gambling. The last 3 however all require actual side quests to be completed, which I want to go in detail about. For the first one you need to visit present day Buckingham, which has a side quest very similar to the one for Prince Cannock from Dragon Quest II, where you are told to go only to find out the fragment has moved hands again. So you are again told where to go, you find the next person, but you just miss the fragment. Prince Cannock was a character defined by this gag. Here it's just a gag, which to me is a much better implementation, especially since it's not the first thing that happens when you put up the game and it's optional. To get it you even have to go through one of the most obnoxious dungeons with long wait times for a 4th time. 2 visits in the past, one while playing as Sir Mervyn and now the last one for the side quest. It's absolutely awful and I hate it, so good job. This is one of the only times you're knowingly hunting for a fragment, where the question is where it is and it's not a byproduct or reward for something else. Unlike the other 2 fragments, the first of which you get from an NPC, a Greycor's reskin found in a coal cave in the present that wants to change into a human similar to the NPCs in the Haven. To do that you need to ask King Scuba for help, which he provides, and as thanks the monster gives you a fragment. If you remember the monster in the Sunken Citadel, those look very similar to this Greycor's reskin and also don't want to fight humans, yet don't want to become humans. But he has one simple reason to want to change to a human form. Others find it hard to not judge a book by its cover, but it's nothing unheard of, especially if we consider that the side quest for the last fragment is the Haven. If you get a lot of monsters to join, the Haven will expand and eventually a fragment will be in a chest in the fully upgraded version of the town. Not every NPC you recruit is noteworthy. There is a lot of diversity in town and that's the point. One example that's particularly noteworthy is Flemeric, a slime and first resident. His full story only becomes apparent when you recruit the final resident, his father. As it turns out, Flemeric is very similar to Kiefer. He in the same way runs away from his duty as the next in line to becoming emperor. He wants freedom, the same way Kiefer wanted the freedom to live his life in his own way. The biggest difference is that this story is not yet concluded. His father stays in town and sees how it is for himself. In a sense the Haven is just that, a safe haven for outcasts, what Kiefer found with the Roamers. And by helping build it, you've made the search a lot easier for future generations. So with this out of the way, it's time to recruit one last outcast. The final tablet, the one bearing the game's logo, leads you to the cave to yet another world. The cave to another world, except more of it. As you might expect, the fight at the end is now against not 1 but 4 enemies. The 4 elemental spirits. The 3 that own the water spirit simply tell you that you can pass. But the water spirit ponders that maybe the Almighty is testing both sides. If you're like me and have tier 3 classes, then the fight is a joke, pathetically weak. It's a joke when compared to a Goldomir, which only makes sense. Then afterwards the water spirit, as the only functional one, compliments you on how your potential for growth is far greater than theirs. And that's true when compared to the spirits, but potential to grow is no unique quality of yours. Boogaloo was able to grow in power between the past and present encounter. And even the Almighty himself says that he has in fact grown, not only in terms of his thickness, but in terms of his combat prowess as well. And if you want to argue that they have a limit, then so do you. You can't go beyond tier 3 classes and you can't go beyond level 99, even if that would already be complete overkill for everything in the game. But what sets you apart is that you have a reason. You have your curiosity driving you towards gaining experiences, and alongside those, your experience points. Meanwhile, Boogaloo was complacent, so sure of himself, he thought he knew everything. This all goes back to the core message I covered in the last video. And so after beating the 4 spirits, you can go up to where the Almighty lives, basically another small divine shrine, where he tells you that he got bored of living up above and wants to move down. He not only confirms that his omnipotence is a myth that humans spread, something I've already made apparent, but he really does come across as just an old guy. This shines a new light on something I've only glanced at so far. You did try to revive the Almighty, only to get the entire world run over by forces of evil, only to revive Boogaloo instead. The entire reason you're hailed as this hero now is because you stopped a calamity that you yourself created. Boogaloo did set everything up, he pulled the strings and you fell right into his trap. You tried to revive someone that was alive and simply didn't see fit to show himself, even if that was out of conviction because the Almighty wanted to make humans autonomous. The game really could have ended before the revival of the Almighty. But why didn't it? It was because of your curiosity. It's a mentality that led you to exploring the mysterious shrine in the first place. Maybe there's more, and maybe it will all be worth it in the end. In this one case, you made a mess and you had to clean that up. But even so, there could still be a happy ending afterwards, and the true one can only be had after your curiosity is sated. To get back to this idea of curiosity as the closest thing to something holy in this game, even here when someone takes advantage of it, when the whole world has to suffer because of it, even if you have to sometimes find things out the hard way, struggle through hardship, it will be worth it in the end. And it is only when you fully sated your curiosity that you can really say that your journey is over.